Alright, what's up? This is a continuation of the first part of my Mythbusters series, which I will link in the description if you haven't watched it yet. If you have anything you want to see tested, put it in the comments, but with that in mind, let's get into the first myth. Our first myth asks, can you get god armor in Minecraft 1.18? If you don't know what god armor is, long story short, there was this feature in Minecraft 1.14 where you could stack enchantments on top of armor. As you can see, different pieces of armor you could put projectile, fire, blast, and normal protection at the same time, realistically creating god armor. But it has since then been removed and everyone's wanting a way to get it back. And while everyone thinks that you can't get it anymore, there's a simple and effective way to do so in single player or even in a server as long as you own it. The way this works is, you create a world on 1.14. Then you have to gather the books and you need to apply the enchantments to your armor, which takes about 27 levels per piece per armor. You should keep in mind that if you make a world version such as 1.18 and convert it to 1.14, it will not work. The world has to be created on 1.14, and once you go to 1.18, if you go back to 1.14 or a version previous, not only will the world most likely corrupt, you will lose a bunch of items and blocks. Our second myth asks, does the closeness to water affect a crop's growth? If you don't know, water has a spread radius of 4, which means that a block of water creates a 9x9 area around it where crops are hydrated. As you can see on your screen, I made a small contraption with 4 rows and put some water and set the tick speed to 100. You would think that having a crop closer to water would cause it to grow faster, but as you can see here, your first, second, third, and fourth rows all grow at the same speed. So the answer to the myth is no. Closeness does not affect a crop's growth or speed. Next up, the myth asks, do witches take fire damage? The obvious answer to this is yes, right? Technically it isn't, as you know all mobs can take damage except for a select few, that being striders, zombified piglins, blazes, magma cubes, ghast, soglins, wither skeletons, withers, and the ender dragon. And even though the witch isn't on this list, it still won't die if you place a bucket of lava or light it on fire. As I'm sure you know, the witch has every single potion to their disposal, and when presented with the event of being lit on fire or thrown into lava, before they can die, not only will they drink a fire resistance potion, but they will drink an instant health one to replenish the health that they lost to the fire. So realistically, don't try to kill a witch with lava or flint and steel. This next myth asks, if a charged creeper blows up a wither skeleton, do you get wither skeleton skulls? So we all know that you can only get 5 mob heads, that being creeper, zombie, skeleton, ender dragon, and wither skeleton, 3 of which you get from having a charged creeper blow up one of the mobs mentioned. You can also get ender dragon head and the player head, but because those don't occur from creepers, we're not going to count those. Well, I blew up a few wither skeletons with a charged creeper, and unfortunately, you do not get a wither skeleton skull from a charged creeper, which means you're going to have to resort to making a farm or just chilling in the nether for a very long time, so I'm wishing you luck. The next myth is jumping while sprinting more efficient than running? This is a pretty clear-cut answer as everybody knows, and of course it's jumping and sprinting. But what about in terms of hunger? If you're stranded and are low on food, should you sprint and jump or just sprint? Well, I did this test also, and if you have normal saturation, which is how much hunger you have, and you sprint, you can run a total of 769 blocks straight, which takes about you 2 minutes and 16 seconds before you get to 3 bars left. On the other side though, if you sprint and jump, you can go 1309 blocks straight, and it will take you about 3 minutes and 1 second. If you do the math, running is 8.7% slower compared to jumping and sprinting. You also travel 7.2 blocks per second when jumping and sprinting, compared to the 6.65 blocks per second when running, which is in a way shorter distance. So if you take anything from that, don't sprint, because jumping and sprinting is infinitely more efficient. A myth that I've been wanting to know myself is, do you get more drops if you break leaves or let them decay? When you destroy leaves, you have a chance to get one of a few items. These items are apples, sticks, saplings, and azaleas. I'm going to put up on screen right now the drops and the respective drop rates so you can have something to base my ideas on, but you can see that it's fairly uncommon to get apples and sticks separately. To test this, I made 2 rows with 6 trees on each side, 6 to allow to decay, and 6 to break the leaves myself. You can see here, with the ones that I let decay, I set the random tick speed to 100 and let the leaves drop their items. In the hopper, there were 16 oak saplings, 11 sticks, and 2 apples. I then did the same thing on the other side. I planted 6 more trees, set the tick speed to 0 so the leaves would have a 0% chance of decaying and would be forced to have me break every one of them. After breaking them, all you see is I got 17 saplings, 7 sticks, and 3 apples. Letting it decay, I got 1 more sapling, 4 less sticks, and 1 more apple. Looking at that, I think it's safe to say that there is realistically no difference. And obviously, and as it should, if you break the leaves with a fortune pickaxe or a fortune hoe, you will get more items. Do you get experience when you mine with fortune rather than with a normal pickaxe? When you mine with fortune, the odds of you getting more items increase usually by 2, 3, or 4 depending on which fortune enchantment you have. In case you're wondering what the actual numbers are and the percentage of drop rates and the rates of getting a certain item is, here's a guide. But the question still remains, do you get more experience if you use a fortune pickaxe? I put 4 rows of diamonds and mined it exactly with a normal pickaxe and then fortune 1, 2, and 3. You'll see that with no enchant, I got 3 levels and 4 bits. With fortune 1, I got 2 levels and 10 bits. With fortune 2, I got 2 levels and 8 bits. And lastly, using fortune 3, I got exactly 3 levels. Because of the weird fluctuation and inconsistency based on levels and enchants, I think it's safe to say that fortune level does not affect how much XP you get from mining ores. If you throw an eye of ender in the nether, will it guide you to the nearest portal like it does in the overworld? If you throw an eye of ender in the overworld, it will guide you in a straight line to the nearest end portal and stronghold. But what happens if you do it in the nether? Well, if you throw an eye of ender in the nether, no matter how hard you try and how many times you try it, you cannot use the eye, and it will act as if it is an unusable item. Can you keep water from a sponge by placing a bucket in the furnace? If you're ever in a situation where you have coal, a bucket, a wet sponge, and no access to water, but you really do need water, could you gather the water from your wet sponge by putting in a furnace and collecting the water with a bucket? To do this, you just need to put a wet sponge in a furnace, place 1 coal in the fuel. Once the coal has been used, you put your empty bucket where the coal used to be, and then once you've put it there, it should fill up with water from the wet sponge, and in return, you should get a dry sponge and a bucket of water. Can shields, slime blocks, or honey blocks redirect splash potions? For each one of these, we made a different contraption where a dispenser would shoot a splash potion at my shield and the honey blocks and the slime blocks. As you can see here, with the first test, a shield cannot deflect or redirect a splash potion, and unfortunately, similarly, neither slime blocks nor honey blocks can deflect a splash potion, so your best bet is to dodge and kill whatever is killing you. Our last myth asks, what happens if you spectate a bee and it goes into its hive? If you aren't aware, in Minecraft Java Edition, if you go into Spectator Mode, you can spectate mobs. To do so, you just left click the mob you want to watch and enjoy. Being able to spectate has many fun features such as spider view, enderman view, and the creeper view. Continuing, if you spectate a bee and it goes to its hive, unfortunately, you will be kicked out of Spectator Mode. Unfortunately, those are all the myths that I have for you today. Reminder that if you want to see a myth tested, just leave one in the comments. And I'll see you next week.